Today's scripture reading is from the book of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 23. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. These you ought to have done, without leaving the others undone. May the Lord add an additional blessing to the reading of his word.
Thank you, Doug. Nice song. All day I've been just waiting for somebody to say, what's with the title of this sermon? But you guys are most politest people. You were thinking that? Sherry was the only one thinking that. What's up with this? Didn't sound like me. I talk this way all the time. Thank you, Gene, for giving me that piece of candy. I felt like Jonathon when he stuck the thing to get the little honey to keep going. It's in the Bible somewhere. Find it. All right. So let me explain the title. With song. With song. If you turn to page 670 in your hymnals, 670. Does anybody recognize this song? I hope you do. We sing it every single week. All right. What you don't know is there's a second verse. For whatever reason, whoever did the hymnal left it out. Oops. Or I think there's another reason we're going to see in a second. Hold on. You get to hear me sing. My lovely pianist. You can all go along with the first ones. We give thee but thy own, whatever that can be. All that we have is thine alone, a trust, O Lord, from thee. Again. May we thy bounties thus as stewards true receive, and gladly as thou blessest us, for thee our first fruits give. It's a little bit Old English wordy there. Yo. May we thy bounties thus as stewards receive, and gladly as thou blessest us, to thee our first fruits give. I love Victorian English. Tell my English teacher that. My daughter asked me, I'm going to have a word of prayer because I'm nervous, very nervous. Dear Jesus, we ask you to help us understand what you want from us and what we can do for you. Because, Lord, we want to be followers of yours. In Jesus' name, amen. So my daughter, one of them, I have three, so you can guess which one. It's up to you. Looked at one of my checks one time for the church, or the entry in the thing. She said, what? We have financial struggles. Why are you paying so much to the church? Sometimes all of us have these questions, right? Or maybe we don't. And I thought I should explain it to her, but then I thought I have this as a sermon, so I'm not explaining anything to her. So I left her hanging. Sorry, dear. Christina, in case you haven't figured it out. When I was young, I used to sit in a pew facing the wrong way. When I was little, and I just draw or doodle and things. And my favorite thing to doodle when I forgot paper was tithe envelopes. I don't think I'm alone in this because I've seen other doodles. And I remember the first time that I flipped it over and read it. And right at the top it says, tithe and offering. Or tithe and offering. Or tithe and offering. Tithe and offerings. And then my dad explained what tithes were. And he basically said in the Bible in Leviticus 27:30, it says, a tenth of the produce of the land, whether grain or fruit, is the Lord's and is holy. Sorry, my wife left. I'm lisping, and that's because I have teeth thing. I don't want to lisp. And Proverbs 3:9 says, this is NIV, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your crops. So the tithe, literally means tenth, 1/10. And it is required. The Lord told the people, give me 1/10 of what you get. I thought, okay, that's pretty easy, right? Because dividing by 10 is easy. That's why metric is cool if we would let it be cool. Like metric commercial. Tenths are easy to divide by. 12ths are not. Okay. And I thought, well, that's great. But then it's the offering part. And offerings aren't so clearly delineated. Is that a word? I'm using it. But on our Adventist offering thing, I don't know if the new ones, because I couldn't find the new one. Does the new one say this? Okay, open it up. Verify if it says it. It suggests tithe 10% to support the gospel ministry in Chestertown Conference and throughout the world. That's what ours says. Then it said local church budget 4 to 7%, 4 to 7, to support ministries and facilities and supplies to the local church. So these envelopes that I write on is part of that. Then it says Chesapeake Advance 1 to 2% to support evangelism, Island View Academy Church and school building projects, church growth within Chesapeake Conference. World budget 2 to 3%, support the gospel ministry of the world and North American missions. So I added all that up. I took the higher numbers. It was like 13%, right? 12%. I'm like, okay, so 10 and 12, that's 22% required. But one day, and I think it was a little different before because there was like 8 things on there. I said to my dad, I said, do you do that? And he said, no, that's offerings. That's just 10%, and that was 8, and that was 7, and that. And he said, but offerings are different than tithes. I'm like, seems like it's the same. It's money, right? But what it really was is, I don't want to say it this way. I'm going to say it this way. Old Testament versus New Testament. Old Testament, we had this vision of God being demanding, boom, boom, boom. And New Testament, Jesus came and he was showing love. If you think of tithe was the demand, pay the 10%. In the New Testament, the offering was love. What do you like to give? Now, how many of us have given a Christmas gift to somebody ever? Okay, there's 3 of you I got to worry about, right? Don, you've never given a Christmas gift? I'm not calling you out, but your hands didn't go up. Okay. I know you have. Well, you're getting married soon, so you'll learn you will give a gift. That was my next question. How many of you received a gift? How do you feel when you get a gift? Well, Most of the time, we're happy and surprised, right? Kids aren't so surprised, they expect it. But gifts are given out of love or group guilt, I guess. So in a way, the offerings, they were a way of showing a personal thanksgiving, right? But in the Bible, there was 3 types of offerings. There's probably more, but this is how I put it. Propitiatory. English is my thing. Propitiatory offerings. These were material sacrifices to atone for sins. Now, where did we see this in the Bible? The burnt offerings, right? The sacrifices. We had that in our lesson a little bit. So, when people did burnt offerings, why were they doing the burnt offering? To atone for their sins, right? Okay. It was very common. Almost all the things are like sacrifices. Remember when Job went and in the morning he would do a sacrifice for anything his kids might have done? Now, if I did that sacrifice, I'd be out of stuff. I wouldn't have any sheep left. Might have done. I'm already bad enough with what they have done. He was sacrificing what they might have done. Okay. Now, some people believe, they're trying to do this to appease God. But really, God really was trying to show them that another sacrifice was coming that would really appease him. But they still did this. The sin offering, you remember at Passover, what did they do? The priest put all the sins on one goat for all the people. All right? And then they sent that goat out into the wilderness. Okay. That's weird. And then another goat they sacrifice. So I got to think of you, those 2 goats, which one you're hoping to be. Send me in the wilderness. Now, it isn't all great because in the wilderness, if you found that goat, you were to kill it immediately and not eat it. So it wasn't a lucky goat if he got found. But that was to appease the sins of the people. And that goat represented Satan, and it being out, one day it will pay, right? He will pay. In Genesis 15, that's where Abram at that time, he took an oath and he said, Lord, I want to follow you. And the Lord said, go and take a heifer, a goat, and I think 2 birds or something. Cut them in half. And then he had to guard them all day because the vultures and the birds of prey wanted to come eat them. And then at night, this light went between them. And it showed that this is a new covenant. This is a covenant between me and you and your offspring. Was that a sin offering? Oh, it was a different kind of offering. And I will find the name. Well, maybe it isn't. No, it's still a sin offering. Sorry. The cover on the Ark of the Covenant was made of solid gold and had 2 cherubs. It was a preparatory cover. Its purpose was what? It was to hold, the Lord it was the mercy seat, but it was to receive all our sins. In the service that they did before, because they didn't use money in the old days like we do now. They had animals. In the old sacrificial system, the head of the household, the guy of the house, dad or grandpa, would bring that sheep to the things, and he would kill the sheep in front of the tabernacle while he looked in to where the holy seat was, to where the Ark of the Covenant was. He would slice that poor sheep's neck. Sorry, Becky. As he put all the sins of his family onto that animal. And he believed that would atone for that year. 1 year only. And each year he would come back and do it again. Now, how he collected those sins, I think they had what we would call family prayer time worship. And he would get them to tell him, what's the things you've done or whatever. And then he would take all those. And when he was praying, he'd probably go through his list and put all that on for the year. Over time, then they let the priests start taking over that. And they did that job of killing the animals. But they still would sprinkle onto the Ark of the Covenant blood. And that blood was the atonement for our sins. We don't really do that sacrifice too much because we now rely on Christ and we give him our atonements. There was a second offering, dedicatory offering. It was a way to remind the Israelites of God's goodness. And the best example that I have of this is Hannah. And I was hoping our little Hannah would be here. 1 Samuel 1, verse 22. And Hannah, she was one of several wives, but she can have children. Remember the story a little bit? But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, not until the child... Oh, wait, I jumped. Sorry. So Hannah went to the temple and she prayed that she could have a child. Even though her husband loved her, he gave her double portions, he treated her very well. She still, maybe she was ridiculed by the other ones when we were learning the story as a kid, like the other wives, like, you can't have babies, or whatever. Or maybe she just felt it. But she went to the temple and she was praying, and Eli came in and she wasn't praying out loud. Now, she was in the court of the women. And as she was praying, Eli comes up and thinks she's drunk because she's just mouth moving. Guess that's what drunken women did back then. And he came over and he kind of accused her, and then she explained why, and then he felt bad about it. And then he put a blessing on her. She had a child, and the child's name was Samuel. Oh, good job. Now we jump down to 1 Samuel 1:22. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, not until the child is weaned. Then I will take him, that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever. Now, that's a dedication. She basically prayed for this special child. He came, and then she gives the child to the Lord forever. And it said that he never came back. He stayed there. She would come every year to do the sacrifices, and she would bring him a little coat that she knitted for him. Sounds cute, doesn't it? It does. But 1 Samuel 21, 1 through 10 has this prayer, and I'm going to tell you all, go read this later. And it's Hannah's prayer. I will just read the first part. And Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. She was happy that the Lord fulfilled his promise, gave her a baby, and she was so happy she dedicated that baby to the Lord forever. Now, I've dedicated my kids to the Lord, but I'm going to tell you, they don't live here in the church, and I didn't leave them here. Now, sometimes they're here, but this was given forever, this child, to the Lord. 1 Samuel 2, 18 through 21. But Samuel ministered before the Lord, even as a child, wearing a linen ephod. It's a little coat. Moreover, his mother used to make him a little robe and bring it to him year by year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. And Eli would bless Elkanah, that's dad, and his wife, and said, the Lord gives you descendants from this woman for the gift or loan that was given to the Lord. Then they would go to their own home. And in verse 21, the Lord visited Hannah so that she conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters. Meanwhile, the child Samuel grew before the Lord. So I'm going to say the word again. Dedicatory offering is one where you dedicate something for a purpose. We do that here in the church, don't we? Oh, we absolutely did. I would say the last one was Worthy Student. We did a dedicatory offering. What was the one before that? Thank you. Voice in the back. The camporee for the Pathfinders. Was that a dedicatory offering? Yes. Now we might have one in the near future to fix things that break times. Pay off the loan. That we built the extensions. That's way before my time here. The school. So we do this a lot. We have these special causes. There's several throughout the year. If you ever look, they'll pop up like annual sacrifice. Sounds kind of weird when we say it that way. But I believe next week it's, no, did we already do HVA? That was this week. But they have different dedications that we can give to. Let's get to communal offerings, because this one I like. The peace offering and the votive offering. Votive. Get these words. English. Okay. Exodus 35, 4 through 5. And Moses spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, This is the thing which the Lord commands, saying, Take from among you an offering to the Lord. Okay, he's bossing that just like the tithe. We want 10%. But this one's different. It says, Whoever is of a willing heart, let him bring it as an offering to the Lord, gold, silver, and bronze. There's something different there. The other one's commanded. Take a tenth of everything. And suddenly we had this one where it said, Who's of a willing heart? Bring your gold, your silver, and bronze. I don't know how these shepherds had that. Well, it's because they brought it out of Egypt. Remember, they went around and did the first ingathering. Hey, you're going to pay us for these wages that you didn't pay. And people gave them the gold, earrings, all the stuff. Even some were badger skins. Study that one. What does it mean? Whoever is of a willing heart. You want to do it. And they brought all this stuff. Every time they opened this up, people brought it. One time they brought so much stuff to the temple that they had to say, Stop, we have no storage. Take it back. How lovely is that? In Exodus 35:21, then everyone came with a heart whose heart was stirred, and everyone whose spirit was willing, and they brought the Lord's offering for the work of the tabernacle of the meeting, for all its service, and for the holy garments. When is our heart is stirred? Doug says it sometimes. Yeah. Have you ever heard of a cause or watched one of those infomercials that popped up? And they pop up a lot. And you say, I want to do that. I'm going to send money in. You get on your phone and it's so easy. And you pop up. And then later your wife says, what was that for? 25? Okay. You were stirred. Your heart was stirred. You said, oh, I'm worried about that. Now, organizations like Red Cross and stuff, they're really good at this. Anytime there's a major disaster, you immediately see donate now. Donate that. They're trying to stir the hearts. As a friend of mine says, well, they're trying to put a guilt trip on you. You have it good, but those people don't. But you shouldn't, if you have a guilt trip, you shouldn't be given to that. I'm going to just tell you. If your heart isn't stirred, you probably shouldn't do it. The New Testimony has a lot of these New Testament. There's a lot in the Old Testament. I mean, Abram was the first one. Remember when he freed all the people, they had the 5 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and stuff. And one day, 4 kings from the east showed up and beat them easily, apparently. Took them all captive, including Lot's family and Lot. It was a lot of problems, but Lot. And as they went, Abraham heard of it, put an army of 300 together, and went and rescued him. And as he came back, he met this interesting character, Melchizedek. Okay, everybody's correct then, so we'll keep going. And Melchizedek was the king of Salem, which later we would call Jerusalem. And as he came, he met him, and Melchizedek gave him a blessing. Bless you. And he said, thank you. Here's a tenth of everything I've taken. He gave tithe to him. Now, under that law, when you rescue a whole group, back in those days, you owned all of it. Every person that he rescued, everything they had, everything he returned, Abraham owned. 100%, it was his. They were now his slaves, technically. But he meets this guy and said, here's 10%. Ooh. He just went from a billionaire to, one of those multimillionaires in a second. As he gave that, then he turned to the king of Salem and Sodom, Gomorrah, those guys, and he said, you're free to go. He gave the 90% back to them. He kept nothing, right? Well, he let his men have some stuff, whatever they wanted to give. What kind of example was that? That was incredible for that time. That was a giving heart, right? You could have kept it all. I own all them cities. Hey, Lot, I gave you that, but now I own that. We should never be reluctant to do these things because it's not a good gift. Have you ever got a gift from somebody that didn't want to give it? Robert's not here. I'm going to do his. We live on this long lane. If you ever come to my house, there used to only be 5 neighbors. Now there's a whole 7 or 8. And we didn't know the first year, so we got the big thing of candy for Halloween. We put that bowl there. We said, if somebody comes to the door, give them the candy. So Robert's in charge of that. All night, no one came. And then one of the little neighbor girls, or granddaughter of the neighbor, I guess they probably said, send a vote to the new house to be nice. Comes, knocks on the door. Robert opened the door, looked at him. He has a whole entire box of candy, bag thing, and he gives one little piece to him. Closed the door. Then he went and ate the rest. Was he giving with a giving? That was not a giving heart. He was mad that one person came. In 24 years, we've had 2 trick-or-treaters in 24 years. And my son was like reluctant. But sometimes I think, I know I felt this way. Sometimes I look at the bills and then I write out that check and I'm like, ooh, if I kept that amount, I could cover that bill for this month. And I'm not having the open heart. And I can tell you, I never paid any offering for lots of years. I only paid tithe. I just skipped that other side, that half. My dad said it was, out of our thing, and I believe him, and I don't have that, and I'm not doing it. It started changing. It started changing with the appeals we started having. It started changing with me reading more about the Bible. The Matthew 23 thing. Woe to you, teachers of the law. You give a tenth, but you've neglected the more important matters. Justice, mercy, faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter, those 3 things, without neglecting the former. So give your 10%, but give justice, mercy, and faithfulness. How do you give that? By what you do, your actions, right? You treat people fairly. Luke said it a different way. But woe to you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and every herb. Neglect justice and love of God. Well, how do we show our love to God? By our actions and what we do. Now, we had a speaker here once, way back, probably 20 years ago, and he said an interesting thing. He said, open up your checkbooks, and hopefully you all keep good records. He said, as you look down, see where the majority of your money goes. How many checks do you write? Whoever you're writing the most checks to, that's where your heart is. It hit me hard. Now, for a second, I was really happy, like saying, hey, look, I write the Adventist church every 2 weeks. I write them a check. I write a check. Most of my checks were to the Adventist church. That's because I digitally pay my other stuff. So the check, that part looked good, the ledger, but as I looked and I seen that my money really wasn't going to the church. It wasn't going to God's work. It wasn't going that way at all because I was keeping right to that narrow 1/10. And as I opened it up, I researched and found out most Adventists give 19 to 20% of their income. The only other group that rivals us are the Mormons. But sadly, in evangelicals, the average is 2.5% of their income. What? How did they get there? They said that tithe part was got rid of. We don't have to do that. And then we give out of our hearts, and I guess they don't have big hearts because 2.5 isn't that much. I guess they didn't read like 1 Chronicles 16:2 says, on every Lord's day, each of you should put aside something from what you have earned during the week and use it for this offering. The amount depends on how much the Lord has helped you earn. That's not a tithe thing, but it's saying, if he blessing you a lot, stick some aside. Didn't say amount even. I see, they missed that. But they have. Hopefully we haven't. We're pretty good. We're pretty good ourselves. Luke 6:38, if you give, you will get. Your gift will return to you in full and overflowing measure, pressed down, shaken together to make room for more and running over. That sounds almost like how I cook. I said put a cup of flour and then I compact it down in and then I put a like heaping thing and somehow it doesn't taste right, but he says, when you give, he will give you so much that you won't have room to contain it. Press it down. Reminds me of the cup that's overflowing, right? You can't keep it all in. Now, when I started my work, there was another guy of another faith, and he was upset because he got mad because he said, I'm paying my tithe, all the stuff, and the Lord said, I will bless you with riches, and I don't got more money. My pay hasn't increased at all. But he also had a wife that was declared that she couldn't have children. They were told by the doctor she can't have children. And all of a sudden, she got pregnant, and she had twins. But as he was complaining, my boss, who's not very religious, said, maybe it wasn't money that you got blessed with. It was children. Now, he was on my route, and I serviced, and he had four children. 4 children, maybe the 5th one coming. And back then, I didn't have that many. I'm like, crazy, but okay. But the Lord blessed him in a different way. He's expecting financial gains, and that's pushed a lot. But sometimes your blessings are different. I'm going to tell you, my wife and I came with a son and I think 4 suitcases to this country, and there was not money in the suitcases. Very nice. Came with only $10 million, and now I have to. But we came, we have houses, we have too many cars, fancy cars, plenty of things. I never gone without a meal unless it's voluntary. I've never been without clothes unless I'm going to the shower. I mean, I have it all. And if you remember, when you're reading the Bible, wasn't that Jacob's promise when he did it? He said, if you give me food to eat, when he was running away from his brother and being murdered, give me clothes and help me return to my home in peace. Lord, I would follow you. And they said, and I will give a tenth of everything I get back to you. All he asked for is clothes, food, and peace in his home when he returns. Those things are the basis and the value of a lot of stuff. I've had all those. Now, there's peace doesn't always last. Sometimes there's fighting in the home. But you hang on that it might be peaceful and you try to negotiate that. Bring in the Lord, it'll help. And also, if you have somebody, pray on them. Pray on that person that's the enemy, so to speak. Because every time we do that, we're heaping coals on their head. Spiritual coals, not real coals. Some people have things in their mind, like, yeah. No, spiritual coals. And maybe it'll change them. Now, as we come into Christmas, we're going to skip all them. But I will tell you, if you really want to study more, go to 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and 9. And that will help you with your spiritual thinking on how to give not of yourself, but also of other things. Like 2 verse 8, verse 12, 2 Corinthians. If willingness is there, the gift is acceptable according to what one has, not according to what one does not have. If you don't have a lot of money, don't worry about it. Give what you can. If you have a lot of money, worry about it and give what you can. All these gifts are basically returning what was given to us to use, right? We're stewards. Now, some of us aren't so good at stewarding. I'm one of them. But the Lord doesn't give up because we're a mess, right? He keeps blessing us, saying, okay, try again. Now, my big confession is my brother would put away a tenth of all his money, but he didn't go to church. So he kept it in this box. And I thought when I was young that box was for me to go get candy. Now, I knew it was for his tithe. He said that. I just didn't know what tithe meant. So I would empty that money down. So my blessing was candy and chunkiness. But later I tried to pay that back. Not to him, but to the Lord. But sometimes we do things. We make bad decisions. Don Uri once said that if the Bible has a remedy, if you forget to pay your tithe, it just says bring twice as much, or 2 sheep for the 1 sheep you didn't give, and pay it back later. It's kind of like pulling off one of your loans and paying it back later. The Lord doesn't say you're cursed for it. He just says, remember who you owe. Acts 20:35 says, remember Jesus' words when he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And when I was in college, I had my first job. I had no kids. And I did Christmas for my nephews and nieces. And there were 5 of them. And yes, I made fun of my brother also for having 5 children. God has a sense of humor, don't he? Sometimes he pays you back for arrogance. And so I got them all the best gifts I could because they weren't rich. Once you have 5 kids, you don't have money. Sorry. You don't. So I got them all the nicest gifts. And like even my youngest nephew at that time, I got him a bird that if you hugged it, it peeped. Beep, beep. He would not let that go for like years. Like, beep. And as I gave all them gifts, I felt great. I felt like the coolest uncle in the world. I felt good. I felt good seeing them open it. It was a little disappointment because I was trying to get a Cabbage Patch doll. That was that era for my niece, and they were hard to get. And so I did not get one. And then I had said this to my sister-in-law, and she leaked the information somehow. And so I got these 2 bears, those collectible presidential bears, if you remember that. Teddy bear and Theodora bear or something. I don't know. They were nice. They were very expensive. She looked down and goes, "Where's the Cabbage Patch Doll?" I was like, it's inside the bear waiting. No, she would rip that open probably. So yeah. But when we give gifts, we feel good. And if we give from our heart, we feel better. But that's because we're representing what Christ did for us. He gave us the best gift ever. When all them sacrificial things, that was leading towards Christ. I'm going to end with Psalms 20. And Psalms 20 is called the assurance of God's saving work. David wrote it, and he gave it to the chief musician, and it says, "May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of God of Jacob defend you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and strengthen you out of Zion. May he remember all your offerings and accept your burnt sacrifice. Selah. May he grant you according to your heart's desire and fulfill all your purpose. We will rejoice in your salvation. In the name of God, we will set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill your petitions. Now I know the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving strength of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. They have bowed down and fallen, but we have risen and stand upright. Save, Lord, may the King answer us when we call." What an awesome, awesome promise. Now, we don't have chariots nowadays. We have cars. We shouldn't rely on the things of this world for our happiness. And when we give our gifts and stuff and it does things, worthy student, awesome. Pathfinder's awesome. Were those kids happy when they came here? They're ecstatic. The problem, we did a pledge of $6,000 and we gave them $12,000. That was a giving heart right there. I mean, we hit the end number, we just kept going. Like, keep going. You think the Lord loved that when he seen that? He was ecstatic. Look, they keep going. They're like that little drumming thing. Everlast Bunny or whatever. Evercharge. I don't even know the brands. We're going to come into tough times. Our money's going to get tight. If it isn't already tight. I'm sure some of you out there like it's already there. But always give with an open heart. Ask the Lord, where do you want me to lift? He'll tell you. And then lift. There's another thing it says, once you make that pledge, do it right away. Because the longer you wait, the meat gets bad, so to speak. You need to start thinking about, ooh, I pledged this, but then I got that bill coming up. But we need to give with an open heart because we will be blessed. We're going to close now with a hymn. I don't have my, oh, there it is. Thank you, Doug. See, I'm blessed by Doug. Can we all stand?